Hi everyone, it's Catherine. I decided to do this video because thinking back to, 2 years ago, just a little bit under 2 years ago when I was an incoming college freshman, I really wish this video existed, and that's what I try to do on my channel, especially with the college classes. Anything I wish I had, I try to make for you all, and this one was actually requested by a few of you, so thank you for asking me to do this. I definitely should have done this a little bit ago, but I think after now 4 semesters of registering for classes, I have a pretty firm grasp on how to kind of do it best. I'm not saying this is going to get you your perfect schedule. I'm not saying it's going to turn out to be an easy semester if you follow these tips, but if you have a better practice, if you have a better tip individually for your school or in general, definitely leave that down below, and of course subscribe if you want me to make more videos requested by you all. I'm gonna try to go through my tips in a sort of chronological order just to help you all out step by step, and the first one would be to really talk to your advisor. I honestly am not sure if every school pairs you with a specific advisor, but here at USC, I have my own advisor, and I had to go see her during orientation. I had to go see her during the first semester of freshman year, and then maybe the second semester I did, and then kind of after that, you don't really have to go see them, but I really do recommend going to talk to them just to make sure you're still on the same track to graduate. I'm graduating early, so I always have to consider that when I'm registering for classes, but if you're the kind of student that wants to go abroad, which I really recommend you did, I did it over the summer and it was completely life-changing, like it always is. And so if you want to go abroad, if you want to graduate early, if you want to take on a minor, if you want to do double major, those are all things you need to express to your advisor as early as possible, because a lot of those classes could be more difficult to get into if you're not in that major, or maybe if you're going abroad a certain semester. So really communicating with your advisor is my first tip. I think a lot of people overlook it, and if you're perfectly competent, you might not have to check in with them a lot, but also they can be good resources if you want to get into a class that's a little harder to get into. Sometimes if you have a good relationship with them, they can really get you in on that wait list in a premier spot. So once you've talked to your advisor and you know what sort of course load you need to take for this next quarter or next semester, really talk to everyone around you about their experience with those classes. You might not always need to take a really tough course during a really tough semester. So for example, my fall semester tends to be really busy because of marching band, so I try not to take as tough of courses, so maybe I'll shift it to the spring, whereas most of my peers are taking in the fall. Talk to people in your organizations, talk to people that are older than you and ask them when they took it. So ask them, did you take it in the fall, the spring, did you take it in the summer, did you take it at a community college? Ask them what they did, ask them their experience with it, whether they thought that was a good decision or not. And you also want to ask them who they took it with. Professors to me are paramount, and I'll get into this in a little bit. Maybe they took it with a really great professor that only teaches it in the fall, so maybe you want to take that course in the fall, but really having mentors who are just maybe a year ahead of me in my major or a couple years ahead of me in another major I want to minor in is so helpful. And implicit in that is joining a club through your major. Not always will there be a club with your major. Maybe you have a smaller major or there's just not a lot of clubs, but for me, being a business major, there are like 12 different clubs I could join, and those are so helpful because that's a really easy way to have a network of a ton of people who have taken those classes with a really great span of professors, so you can talk to multiple people, get multiple perspectives. Next, if you don't have that resource, if it's your first semester coming in as a freshman and you don't know anyone at your college, you don't know anyone older that you can talk to, that's totally understandable. I think I had one person to talk to who was a really good person to talk to, but if I hadn't had him, I definitely went on Rate My Professor a lot. You've probably heard of ratemyprofessor.com. I'm not advocating for them, I'm just advocating for you using them a little bit to get your kind of preference on. There's some professors that aren't even in the database, but Rate My Professor, as you will come to see as you use the site more and more, basically just gives personal anecdotes about people's time in the class, about maybe how much workload there is, how clear and how many A's they give out, how easy the grading scale is, what the time commitment is. You'll get a ton of varying opinions, and I wouldn't put Rate My Professor as a better resource than an actual person because there is a huge negative bent on Rate My Professor. It's just a negative bias because think about it, if you just finished up your semester and you're really pissed off because you got a poorer grade than you wanted to in a class, you're gonna wanna go and just wreck that professor online and just rant about them for ages. It tends to be a little bit of a more negative focus on the website, so you will see a lot of that. Don't let that sway you completely, because I have had some really meaningful experiences out of professors that haven't been most liked necessarily. But that will tell you if a professor has like an amazing grade, like they, you know, have like a 4.0, or if they're not a 5.0, it's either 4.0 or 5.0, and they have like a nice chili pepper on there, and they get a lot of great raving reviews, and you know, people have really good experience with them. That might be a professor you want to consider because they clearly have beaten that negative bias on Rate My Professor. So take it with a grain of salt, Rate My Professor, but it is a resource out there that almost everyone that wants to do well in their classes is using. So once you have talked to friends and the internet about what you want out of a professor in a certain class, it's time for you to decide, and this is a really critical point that I didn't always use my first few semesters, that you want to decide if you want a good teacher or an easy teacher. A lot of people in college just straight up want the good grade. They're going into academia knowing that they're going to go to grad school, med school, whatever. They want to have just a really stellar GPA in that case. And so they'll always go for the professor that grades easily, doesn't hand out a lot of work or anything. And while I don't think that's the most respectable approach, I can't say I haven't done it. There is a balance you need to strike though, that you need to have some professors that actually are meaningful to you, can act as mentors to you, who really do care about their students a lot. And I have had some teachers that have been real a-holes and have been really, they demand a lot of you, they have really high expectations, but at the end of the day, they teach you a whole lot. And especially for me in business classes that I really want to do a lot in, like if I really know I want to be in the communication and marketing field, those are classes that I never want to choose an easy professor, because those are things I'm actually going to take with me into the real world, or at least into interviews. I need to learn a lot in the classroom. I don't just need to get a good grade. Like I'll take a little bit of a lower grade so that I can actually use information I learned. But then if it's just a requirement you need to get by, usually at colleges you have a core requirement of a certain number of classes. Those are ones where maybe you don't really need to learn a ton. Like I'm taking a Buddhism class right now that isn't teaching me a lot anyway, but supposedly the professor is easy. I kind of got duped on that one, and the grading scale is a little bit messed up, but you'll experience that in college. Not all classes are going to be as easy as you anticipate. So at the end of the day, those are kind of GE, general education, core courses. I'm not really going to use linguistics ever again. I really just want it to be a manageable, easy class with a clear instruction. So you kind of have to balance it out. But for me, I'm a student that has more of a weight towards the good, meaningful, purposeful, maybe more challenging professor. So figure out for you what you want, because when you're talking to people, when you're looking online, you'll get a sense for, are they easy or are they clear and helpful? So now you've chosen with your advisor the classes you want and the professors you want in those classes. Now it's time to choose when you arrange your schedule. In college, you have complete reign over when you take your classes. So for me, I knew I had clubs from 5 to 9 on Wednesday nights. I knew I had marching band from 4 to 6, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And so you end up with these time blocks later in your college career that really impede your ability to have a ton of flexibility. When you're coming in your freshman semester, you might want to consider what will be your time block. So if you are planning to join a club, maybe the debate team, or maybe a sport, you need to know what time those practices and what time those meetings are at, so you can schedule around that. If you have no idea what you're doing, don't worry about it. It's just time to pick optimal class times for you. The usual stigma in college is Friday classes suck and you do not want to be out of bed before like 10. Like your earliest class should start at like 10. That's an early class. Nobody wants to be taking 8 a.m. So you'll see a lot of times that 8 a.m. classes are the last to fill up just because no one wants to get up that early. But if I could instruct you in any helpful way during this entire video, I would say don't be wary of 8 a.m. classes. I know you're super tired of getting up at 7 or 6 a.m. for high school every single day, but I will tell you it's way more productive and helpful for you in college if you start your day at 8 a.m. versus starting your day with a class at like 12. My first semester freshman year, I had my econ class, earliest class at like 12 p.m. That means I didn't really get up and out of bed till 9:30. I went down to the kitchen, I came back up and did a little bit of a Googling, just doing random stuff on the internet, and then I would, go to class a little bit, maybe read one article, and I just didn't get anything done for that first major 4 hours of the day. And then once you're in class from 12 to 4, maybe 12 to 6, and then you have dinner, and then you maybe see a friend, it's already like 9:30 and you haven't really done anything for the day, like outside of class. So for me, the most helpful thing I've done is to really schedule as much as I can classes at 8 a.m. So I have really tried to do that just because once you have class 8 a.m., you get through your day a lot faster and you can get on with your day a lot faster. If you think I'm crazy for considering 8 a.m. classes, go ahead. I mean, if you literally cannot get yourself to focus at 8 a.m., that's fine. But I tend to find that because I'm trained from kindergarten to 12th grade to process information at 8 a.m., I can still do it in college. I'm pretty good at it. It sucks to get out of bed, but once I'm out of bed, I'm so grateful that that 8 a.m. class made me do that. So at this point, you should have a tentative schedule ready, and always make your schedule before your registration day. So now's your point to kind of double check. It's, maybe the day before, the day of, and you want to double check, make sure everything's good. And I find that a good way to just double check I want to take the class is by Googling, if possible, the syllabus for the class and any interviews, maybe a YouTube video about the class for that specific course. So I didn't put this in the section with looking up professors because a lot of times I can't find any syllabi or any interviews with the professor, but this is a really good way to reaffirm if you want to take the class, and maybe if you're debating between two classes, this is a really good way to seal the deal. It kind of is just that last notch that you want to consider is the syllabus. You can look at what the assignments are like, you can look at what each topic of the week is like sometimes you'll get a really cool class, you expected something different, and the syllabus presented it in a more dry or unfulfilling way. That can be a good way to say, I'd rather take this other class I was considering over that one. Still, I think these are really good ways to kind of cement what you want out of your schedule and make any final comparisons between two options you were considering. Last step, you have everything set. You're all ready to register, you know your registration time and the date, and you know if you have any holds in your registration, you know exactly what's gonna happen. The best piece of advice I could give you is maybe not freshman semester you'll have this ability, but going forwards, make friends with juniors and seniors, and preferably juniors and seniors that are going abroad or not taking a ton of classes. A lot of juniors and seniors will kind of lay back their last year and take fewer units than they would usually, and that allows them to register for a class for you. It's called holding classes if you're not familiar. You can have your friend register for a really popular film class for you if they have access to it, maybe if they're in the same major or if they have that prerequisite completed, they can register for that class for you. And then since you might miss it by the time you register 2 weeks later, they'll hold that spot for you since the class is filled up, and then you can come back 2 weeks later and maybe at 2 a.m. in the nighttime they unregister and you register for it, and that way you're in that spot even though you registered a little bit too late to really have access to it. So think about that. Think about if there's any really high competitive classes that you want to get into, maybe a semester or two before you have, enough credits to register at a good time. But holding classes I've found is a really good way to decrease your stress and your anxiety around registration, because I am certainly super high strung around my registration time because things never go the way you anticipate, but stuff just gets shifted around. So expect the unexpected, but hopefully go into it with these resources and the tips I've given you and be all set. I know I'm a little bit psycho with all these tips, but when you're in college, there are some incredible classes out there and you don't want to miss your opportunity to take them. So please take whatever you want from this video and leave any suggestions you have down below that maybe an older sister or friend or professor even has told you. I hope you enjoyed my advice. I'll see you all next time. Please subscribe down below, and Katherout.